वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्य रूप विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्वर शिल भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्य रूप विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्वर शिल भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्य रूप विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्वर शिल भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्य रूप विश्व महाभागवत शिल गोक्षर स्वामी महाराज की जय। नित्य रूप विश्व शिल सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नित्य रूप विष्णु वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबा जी महाराज की जय। श्री रूप गौरी गुरु वर्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल पटदार रघुनाथ शार गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गोपाल वृंद की जय। नाम अठाई रस ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्री गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल ब्रज मंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अविष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री मुनि देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योग माया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री सफल अकारशी तिथि की जय। अकारशी तिथि पालन करी भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्री ग्रंथराज श्रीमद्-भागवतम की जय। श्री निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापरकमलं श्रीगुरु वैष्णवंश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथं वितान्तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पदां सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय राधिकाय प्रियात्मने श्रीमद्-भक्तिवेदान्त नारायणीति नामिने। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरतिशे नमः। गुरुवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकाय तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तरभक्ताय नमो नमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तम् अनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुस्तं सार्वभूतहृदयमुनिमानतोऽस्मि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। शृण्वतां स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तन हृदन्तस्थो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सतम्। नष्टप्रायेषु भवद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे त्वां नायमां चरणन्तिकम्। भक्त्या विहीना अपराधलक्षा क्षिप्ताष्टकामादितरङ्गमध्ये कृपामयि त्वां शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दम्। Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Alright, so we're now on chapter 22, the marriage between the marriage of Kardama Muni and Devahuti. Let me make this bigger. Anyhow, it's big enough, right? How come it doesn't get bigger? I'm done the Mataji. Anyhow, it's going really slow. Okay, so this is just a very quick recap of what we read. Thereafter, Vidura inquired after the whole story of Varahadev killing Hiranyaksha. Thereafter, Vidura inquired from Maitreya on how the universe was further populated by Swayambhuva Manu's children. Swayambhuva Manu had 2 sons named Priyavrata and Uttanapad, and 3 daughters namely Akuti, Prasuti, and Devahuti. Maitreya first described the descendants of Devahuti, who was married to Kardama Muni. Kardama Muni worshipped Lord Vishnu by performing austerity for 10,000 years, with a desire to get a suitable wife. His desire wasn't for his sense enjoyment, but to fulfill the instruction of Brahma to create progeny, which was in turn a service to Lord Vishnu. After having some children, Kardama wished to retire from active family life. Vishnu told Kardama Muni that Swayambhuva Manu would come with his daughter, and then so now Kardama Muni, he received Swayambhuva Manu, and now this is what Swayambhuva Manu said to Kardama. Maitreya uvacha evam avishkrita shesha guna karmodayo munim savrida ivatam samraduparatam uvacha. Sri Maitreya said, after describing the greatness of the emperor's manifold qualities and activities, the sage became silent, and the emperor, feeling modesty, addressed him as follows. And of course, the emperor refers to Swayambhuva Manu. Manuruvacha brahmasrejat samukhato yushmanatma paripsaya chando mayastapo vidya yoga yuktam alampatam. Manu replied, to expand himself in Vedic knowledge, Lord Brahma, the personified Veda, from his face created you, the Brahmins, who are full of austerity, knowledge, and mystic power, and are averse to sense gratification. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The purpose of the Vedas is to propagate the transcendental knowledge of the absolute truth. The Brahmins were created from the mouth of the Supreme Person, and therefore they are meant to spread the knowledge of the Vedas in order to spread the glories of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita also, Lord Krishna says that all the Vedas are meant for understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is especially mentioned here, Yoga Yuktam Alam Patan, that Brahmins are full of mystic power and are completely averse to sense gratification. Actually, there are 2 kinds of occupations. One occupation in the material world is sense gratification, and the other occupation is spiritual activity, to satisfy the Lord by his glorification. Those who engage in sense gratification are called demons, and those who spread the glorification of the Lord or satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord are called demigods. It is specifically mentioned here that the Brahmins are created from the face of the cosmic personality, or Virat Purush. Similarly, the Kshatriyas are said to be created from his arms. The Vaishyas are created from his waist, and the Shudras are created from his legs. Brahmins are especially meant for austerity, learning, and knowledge, and are averse to all kinds of sense gratification. Tatranaya srijach chashman dosahasrat sahasrapat hridayam tasyahi brahma kshatram angam prachakshate. For the protection of the Brahmins, the thousand-legged Supreme Being created us, the Kshatriyas, from his 1,000 arms. Hence, the Brahmins are said to be his heart and the Kshatriya his arms. Purport. Kshatriyas are specifically meant to maintain the Brahmins because Kshatriyas are specifically meant to maintain the Brahmins because if the Brahmins are protected, then the head of civilization is protected. Brahmins are supposed to be the head of the social body. If the head is clear and has not gone mad, then everything is in proper position. The Lord is described thus: Namo Brahmana Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. The purport of this prayer is that the Lord specifically protects the Brahmins and the cows, and then he protects all. It is his will that the universal welfare work depends on the protection of the cows and Brahmins. Thus, Brahminical culture and cow protection are the basic principles for human civilization. Kshatriyas are especially meant to protect the Brahmins, as is the supreme will of the Lord. Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. As within the body, the heart is a very important part, so the Brahmins are also the important element in human society. The Kshatriyas are more like the whole body. Even though the whole body is bigger than the heart is more important. Atayanyonyam atmanam brahmakshatram charakshata rakshati smavayayo deva sayasar asaratmaka. That is why the Brahmins and Kshatriyas protect each other, as well as themselves. And the Lord himself, who is both the cause and effect and is yet immutable, protects them through each other. Purport. The entire social structure of Varna and Ashram is a cooperative system meant to uplift all to the highest platform of spiritual realization. The Brahmins are intended to be protected by the Kshatriyas, and the Kshatriyas are also intended to be enlightened by the Brahmins. When the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas cooperate nicely, the other subordinate divisions, the Vaishyas or mercantile people and the Sudras or laborer class, they automatically flourish. The entire elaborate system of Vedic society was therefore based on the importance of Brahmins and Kshatriyas. The Lord is the real protector, but he is unattached to the affairs of protection. He creates Brahmins for the protection of the Kshatriyas, and Kshatriyas for the protection of the Brahmins. He remains aloof from all activities. Therefore, he is called nirvikar, without activity. He has nothing to do. He is so great that he does not perform any action personally, but his energies act. The Brahmins and Kshatriyas and anything that we see are different energies acting upon one another. Although individual souls are all different, the super self or super soul is the personality of Godhead. Individually, oneself may differ from others in certain qualities and may engage in different activities, such as those of a Brahmin, Kshatriya, or Vaishya. But when there is complete cooperation among different individual souls, the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Supersoul, Paramatma, being one in every individual soul, is pleased and gives them all protection. As stated before, the Brahmins are produced from the mouth of the Lord, and the Kshatriyas are produced from the chest or arms of the Lord. If the different castes or social sections, although apparently differently occupied in different activities, nevertheless act in full cooperation, then the Lord is pleased. This is the idea of the institution of 4 varnas and 4 ashrams. If the members of different ashrams and varnas cooperate fully in Krishna consciousness, then society is well protected by the Lord without doubt. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that the Lord is the proprietor of all different bodies. The individual soul is the proprietor of his individual body, but the Lord clearly states, "My dear Bharata, you must know that I am also Kshetragya." Kshetragya means the knower or proprietor of the body. The individual soul is the proprietor of the individual body, but the supersoul, the personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the proprietor of all bodies everywhere. He is the proprietor not only of human bodies, but of birds, beasts, and all other entities, not only on this planet, but on other planets also. He is the supreme proprietor. Therefore, he does not become divided by protecting the different individual souls. He remains one and the same. That the sun appears on the top of everyone's head that the sun appears on the top of everyone's head when at the meridian does not imply that the sun becomes divided. One man thinks that the sun is on his head only, whereas 5,000 miles away, another man is thinking that the sun is only on his head. Similarly, the Supersoul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is one, but he appears to individually oversee each individual soul. This does not mean that the individual soul and the Supersoul are one. They are one in quality as spirit soul, but the individual soul and Supersoul are different. Tava sandarshanadeva chena me sarva shankshaya yat swayam bhagavan pritya dharmam aha virakshisho. Now I have resolved all my doubts simply by meeting you, for your lordship has very kindly and clearly explained the duty of a king who desires to protect his subjects. It's interesting why your lordship is capitalized. Purport. Manu described herewith the results of seeing a great saintly person. Lord Chaitanya says that one should always try to associate with saintly persons, because if one establishes a proper association with a saintly person, even for a moment, one attains all perfection. Somehow or other, if one meets a saintly person and achieves his favor, then the entire mission of one's human life is fulfilled. In our personal experience, we have actual proof of this statement of Manu. Once we had the opportunity to meet Vishnupad Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, and on first sight, he requested this humble self to preach his message in the Western countries. There was no preparation for this, but somehow or other he desired it, and by his grace we are now engaged in executing his order, which has given us a transcendental occupation and has saved and liberated us from the occupation of material activities. Wow, this is so beautiful. Thus, it is actually a fact that if one meets a saintly person, completely engaged in transcendental duties and achieves his favor, then one's life mission becomes complete. What is not possible to achieve in thousands of lives can be achieved in one moment if there's an opportunity to meet a saintly person. It is therefore enjoined in Vedic literature that one should always try to associate with saintly persons and to disassociate oneself from the common man, because by one word of a saintly person, one can be liberated from material entanglement. A saintly person has the power, because of his spiritual advancement, to give immediate liberation to the conditioned soul. Here Manu admits that all his doubts are now over, because Kardama has very kindly described the different duties of individual souls. I like that purport. I'm going to save it. I'll do that after. No, I'm going to save it now. Okay. Drishtya me Bhagavan drishta durdarsha yo kritatmanam Dishta para rajasprishta shirshna me bhavata shivam. Dandavat pranam Sanjali and Radhe Radhe Kargaraj. It is my good fortune that I've been able to see you, for you cannot be easily because. One second, let me just save this before I forget. Okay. It is my good fortune that I have been able to see you, for you cannot easily be seen by persons who have not subdued the mind or controlled the senses. I am all the more fortunate to have touched with my head the blessed dust of your lotus feet. Okay. The perfection of transcendental life can be achieved simply by touching the body. The perfection of transcendental life can be achieved simply by touching the holy dust of the lotus feet of a holy man. In the Bhagavatam, it is said, Mahat Pado Rajo Vishekam, which means to be blessed by the holy dust of the lotus feet of a Mahat, a great devotee. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Mahatmanas too, those who are great souls are under the spell of spiritual energy, and their symptom is that they fully engage in Krishna consciousness for the service of the Lord. They are called Mahat. Unless one is fortunate enough to have the dust of the lotus feet of a Mahatma on one's head, there is no possibility of perfection in spiritual life. The parampara system of disciplic succession is very important as a means of spiritual success. One becomes a Mahat by the grace of his Mahat spiritual master. If one takes shelter of the lotus feet of a great soul, there is every possibility of one's also becoming a great soul. When Maharaj Rahugana asked Jadabharat about his wonderful achievement of spiritual success, he replied to the king that spiritual success is not possible simply by following the rituals of religion, or simply by converting oneself into a sannyasi or offering sacrifices as recommended in the scriptures. These methods are undoubtedly helpful for spiritual realization, but the real effect is brought about by the grace of a Mahatma. In Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's 8 stanzas of prayer to the spiritual master, it is clearly stated that simply by satisfying the spiritual master, one can achieve the supreme success in life. And in spite of executing all ritualistic performances, if one cannot satisfy the spiritual master, one has no access to spiritual perfection. Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasadam. Yasya prasadad nagati gotopi. Here the word akritatmanam is very significant. Atma means body, soul, or mind. An akritatma means the common man who cannot control the senses or the mind. Because the common man is unable to control the senses and the mind, it is his duty to seek the shelter of a great soul or a great devotee of the Lord and just try to please him. That will make his life perfect. A common man cannot rise to the topmost stage of spiritual perfection simply by following the rituals and religious principles. He has to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and work under his direction faithfully and sincerely. Then he becomes perfect without a doubt. Dishtya tvayānuṣishtoḥam kritaścānugraho mahan apavrittāya karnarantrar juṣta dishtyoṣatir kira. I have fortunately been instructed by you, and thus great favor has been bestowed upon me. I thank God that I have listened with open ears to your pure words. Purport. Srila Rupa Goswami has given directions in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu on how to accept a bona fide spiritual master and how to deal with him. First, the desiring candidate must find a bona fide spiritual master, and then he must very eagerly receive instructions from him and execute them. This is reciprocal service. A bona fide spiritual master or saintly person always desires to elevate a common man who comes to him. Because everyone is under the delusion of Maya and is forgetful of his prime duty, Krishna consciousness, a saintly person always desires that everyone become a saintly person. It is the function of a saintly person to invoke Krishna consciousness in every forgetful common man. Manu said that since he was advised and instructed by Kardama Muni, he was very much favored. He considered himself lucky to receive the message by oral reception. It is especially mentioned here that one should be very inquisitive to hear with open ears from the authorized source of the bona fide spiritual master. How is one to receive? One should receive the transcendental message by oral reception. The word karna randrai means through the holes of the ears. The favor of the spiritual master is not received through any other part of the body but the ears. This does not mean, however, that the spiritual master gives a particular type of mantra through the ears in exchange for some dollars, and if the man meditates on that, he achieves perfection and becomes God within 6 months. Actually, I just really like this sentence. The favor of the spiritual master is not received through any other part of the body but the ears. I'm going to save that. Oops, what happened? Okay. So such reception to the ears is bogus. The real fact is that a bona fide spiritual master knows the nature of a particular man and what sort of duties he can perform in Krishna consciousness, and he instructs him in that way. He instructs him through the ear, not privately, but publicly. You are fit for such and such work in Krishna consciousness. You can act in this way. One person is advised to act in Krishna consciousness by working in the deity's room. Another is advised to act in Krishna consciousness by performing editorial work. Another is advised to do preaching work, and another is advised to carry out Krishna consciousness in the cooking department. There are different departments of activity in Krishna consciousness, and a spiritual master, knowing the particular ability of a particular man, trains him in such a way that by his tendency to act, he becomes perfect. Bhagavad Gita makes it clear that one can attain the highest perfection of spiritual life simply by offering service according to his ability, just as Arjuna served Krishna by his ability in the military art. Arjuna offered his service fully as a military man, and he became perfect. Similarly, an artist can attain perfection simply by performing artistic work under the direction of the spiritual master. If one is a literary man, he can write articles and poetry for the service of the Lord under the direction of the spiritual master. One has to receive the message of the spiritual master regarding how to act in one's capacity, for the spiritual master is expert in giving such instructions. This combination, the instruction of the spiritual master and the faithful execution of the instruction by the disciple, makes the entire process perfect. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes in his explanation of the verse in Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasayatmika Buddhir, that one who wants to be certain to achieve spiritual success must take the instruction from the spiritual master as to what his particular function is. He should faithfully try to execute that particular instruction and consider that his life and soul. The faithful execution of the instruction which he receives from the spiritual master is the only duty of the disciple, and that will bring him perfection. One should be very careful to receive the message from the spiritual master through the ears and execute it faithfully. That will make one's life successful. These are great purports. Sabhavan duhitri sneha pariklishtatmano mama shruddhum arhasi dinasya shravitam kripaya mune. O great sage, graciously be pleased to listen to the prayer of my humble self, for my mind is troubled by affection for my daughter. Purport. When a disciple is perfectly in consonance with the spiritual master, having received his message and executed it perfectly and sincerely, he has a right to ask a particular favor from the spiritual master. Generally, a pure devotee of the Lord or a pure disciple of a bona fide spiritual master does not ask any favor either from the Lord or the spiritual master. But even if there is a need to ask a favor from the spiritual master, one cannot ask that favor without satisfying him fully. Swayambhuva Manu wanted to disclose his mind regarding the function he wanted to execute due to affection for his daughter. Priyavratotana pado swasayam duhita mama anvichati patim yuktam vayashila gunadibi. My daughter is the sister of Priyavrata and Uttanapad. She is seeking a suitable husband in terms of age, character, and good qualities. Purport. The grown-up daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, Devahuti, had good character and was well qualified. Therefore, she was searching for a suitable husband, just befitting her age, qualities, and character. The purpose of Manu's introducing his daughter as a sister of Priyavrata and Uttanapad, two great kings, was to convince the sage that the girl came from a great family. She was his daughter, and at the same time the sister of Kshatriyas. She did not come from a lower-class family. Manu therefore offered her to Kardama as just suitable for his purpose. It is clear that although the daughter was mature in age and qualities, she did not go out to find her husband independently. She expressed her desire for a suitable husband corresponding to her character, age, and quality, and the father himself, out of affection for his daughter, took charge of finding such a husband. Yadatu bhavata shila shuddharupa vayogunan ashrinon naratad esha tvayasid kritanishtraya. The moment she heard from the sage Narad of your noble character, learning, beautiful appearance, youth, and other virtues, she fixed her mind upon you. Purport. The girl Devahuti did not personally see Kardama Muni, nor did she personally experience his character or qualities, since there was no social intercourse by which she could gain such understanding. But she heard about Kardama Muni from the authority of Narad Muni. Hearing from an authority is a better experience than gaining personal understanding. She heard from Narad Muni that Kardama Muni was just fit to be her husband. Therefore she became fixed in her heart that she would marry him, and she expressed her desire to her father, who therefore brought her before him. Tat praticha dvijagre mam shraddhayo paritam maya sarvatmana nurupam te grihamedhishu karmasu. Therefore, please accept her, O chief of the Brahmins, for I offer her with faith, and she is in every respect fit to be your wife and take charge of your household duties. Purport. The words griha medishu karmasu mean in household duties. Another word is also used here, sarvatmana nurupam. The purport is that a wife should not only be equal to her husband in age, character, and qualities, but must be helpful to him in his household duties. The household duty of a man is not to satisfy his sense gratification, but to remain with a wife and children and at the same time attain advancement in spiritual life. One who does not do so is not a householder, but a griha medi. Two words are used in Sanskrit literature. One is grihasta, and the other is griha medi. The difference between griha medi and grihasta is that grihasta is also an ashram, or spiritual order. But if one simply satisfies his senses as a householder, then he is a griha medi. For a griha medi, to accept a wife means to satisfy the senses. But for a grihasta, a qualified wife is an assistant in every respect for advancement in spiritual activities. It is the duty of the wife to take charge of household affairs and not to compete with the husband. A wife is meant to help, but she cannot help her husband unless he is completely equal to her in age, character, and quality. Udyatasya hi kamasya prativado nashasyate api nirmuktas sankasya kamaraktasya kim puna. To deny an offering that has come of itself is not commendable, even for one absolutely free from all attachment, much less one addicted to sense pleasure. Purport. In material life, everyone is desirous of sense gratification. Therefore, a person who gets an object of sense gratification without endeavor should not refuse to accept it. Kardama Muni was not meant for sense gratification, yet he aspired to marry and prayed to the Lord for a suitable wife. This was known to Swayambhuva Manu. He indirectly convinced Kardama Muni, "You desire a suitable wife like my daughter, and she is now present before you. You should not reject the fulfillment of your prayer. You should accept my daughter." Ya udyatam anadritya kinasham abhiyachate kshiyate taryasha spitam manaschava hata. One who rejects an offering that comes of its own accord, but later begs a boon from a miser, thus loses his widespread reputation, and his pride is humbled by the neglectful behavior of others. Purport. The general procedure of Vedic marriage is that a father offers his daughter to a suitable boy. That is a very respectable marriage. A boy should not go to the girl's father and ask for the hand of his daughter in marriage. That is considered to be humbling. One's respectable position. Swayambhuva Manu wanted to convince Kardama Muni, since he knew that the sage wanted to marry a suitable girl. I am offering just such a suitable wife. Do not reject the offer, or else, because you are in need of a wife, you will have to ask for such a wife from someone else who may not behave with you so well. In that case, your position will be humbled. Another feature of this incident is that Swayambhuva Manu was the emperor, but he went to offer his qualified daughter to a poor Brahmin. Kardama Muni had no worldly possessions. He was a hermit living in the forest, but he was advanced in culture. Therefore, in offering one's daughter to a person, the culture and quality are counted as prominent, not wealth or any other material consideration. Ahang tva Shrinavam Vidvan Vivahartam Samudhattam Atastvam Upakurvana Pravatam Pratigrihana Me. Sorry. Swayambhuva Manu continued, "O wise man, I heard that you are prepared to marry. Please accept her hand, which is being offered to you by me, since you have not taken a vow of perpetual celibacy." Purport. The principle of brahmacharya is celibacy. There are two kinds of brahmacharis. One is called Naishtika brahmachari, which means one who takes a vow of celibacy for his whole life, whereas the other is the Upakurvana brahmachari, is a brahmachari who takes the vow of celibacy up to a certain age. For example, he may take the vow to remain celibate up to 25 years of age. Then, with the permission of his spiritual master, he enters married life. Brahmacharya is student life, the beginning of life in the spiritual orders, and the principle of brahmacharya is celibacy. Only a householder can indulge in sense gratification or sex life, not a brahmachari. Swayambhuva Manu requested Kardama Muni to accept his daughter since Kardama had not taken the vow of Naishtika brahmacharya. He was willing to marry, and the suitable daughter of a royal family was presented. Of a high royal family was presented. Rishir uvacha adamurvo dukamoham pratachatavatmaja avayoranurupo savadyo vaivahiko vidi. Translation. The great sage replied, "Certainly I have a desire to marry, and your daughter has not yet married or given her word to anyone. Therefore, our marriage according to the Vedic system can take place." Purport. There are many considerations by Kardama Muni before accepting the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. Most important is that Devahuti had first of all fixed her mind on marrying him. She did not choose to have any other man as her husband. That is a great consideration because female psychology dictates that when a woman offers her heart to a man for the first time, it is very difficult for her to take it back. Also, she had not married before. She was a virgin girl. All these considerations convinced Kardama Muni to accept her. Therefore, he said, "Yes, I shall accept your daughter under religious regulations of marriage." There are different kinds of marriages, of which the first-class marriage is held by inviting a suitable bridegroom for the daughter and giving her in charity, well-dressed and well-decorated with ornaments, along with a dowry according to the means of the father. There are other kinds of marriage, such as Gandharva marriage and a marriage by love, which are also accepted as marriage. Even if one is forcibly kidnapped and later on accepted as a wife, that is also accepted. But Kardama Muni accepted the first-class way of marriage because the father was willing and the daughter was qualified. She had never offered her heart to anyone else. All these considerations made by Kardama Muni agreed to accept the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. Just to clarify, even if one is forcibly kidnapped and later on accepted as a wife, that is also accepted. I think it's kidnapping the wife like of her own desire, like how Arjuna kidnapped Subhadra, but Subhadra wanted to be kidnapped. It's not that, yeah. Kamasa bhuyan naradevatesya putra samanaya vido pratita ka eva te tanayam nadriyeta samyaiva kantya kshipitim iva shriyam. So I got the meter of that wrong. Anyhow. Let your daughter's desire for marriage, which is recognized in the Vedic scriptures, be fulfilled. Who would not accept her hand? She is so beautiful that by her bodily luster alone, she excels the beauty of her ornaments. Purport. Kardama Muni wanted to marry Devahuti in the recognized manner of marriage prescribed in the scriptures. As stated in the Vedic scriptures, the first-class process is to call the bridegroom to the home of the bride and hand her to him in charity with a dowry of necessary ornaments, gold, furniture, and other household paraphernalia. This form of marriage is prevalent among higher-class Hindus even today and is declared in the Shastras to confer great religious merit on the bride's father. But nowadays in India, it's demanded. Like the husband's family, they demand, you have to give this dowry, you have to give us a washer machine, a motorbike, etc. But that's not the Vedic system. It's not meant to be demanded. To give a daughter in charity to a suitable son-in-law is considered to be one of the pious activities of the householder. There are 8 forms of marriage mentioned in the scriptures, Manusmriti. But only one process of marriage, Brahma or Rajasic marriage, is now current. Other kinds of marriage, by love, by exchange of garlands, or by kidnapping the bride, are now forbidden in this Kali age. Formerly, Kshatriyas would, at their pleasure, kidnap a princess from another royal house, and there would be a fight between the Kshatriya and the girl's family. Then if the kidnapper was a winner, the girl would be offered to him for marriage. Sorry. Even Krishna married Rukmini by that process, and some of his sons and grandsons also married by kidnapping. Krishna's grandsons kidnapped Duryodhana's daughter, which caused a fight between the Kuru and Yadu families. Afterward, an adjustment was made by the elderly members of the Kuru family. Such marriages were current in bygone ages, but at the present moment, they are impossible because the strict principles of Kshatriya life had practically been abolished. Since India has become dependent on foreign countries, the particular influences of her social orders have been lost. Now, according to the scriptures, everyone is a Sudra. The so-called Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas have forgotten their traditional activities, and in the absence of these activities, they are called Shudras. It is said in the scriptures, Kalo Shudra Sambhava. In the age of Kali, everyone will be like Sudras. The traditional social customs are not followed in this age, although formerly they were followed strictly. Yam Yam harmya prishtik Yam harmya prishte kavanar angrishobham vikriditim kandu kavi palakshim vishva vasurnya patat svarvimanar vilokya samoha vimuracheta. I have heard that Vishvavasu, the great Gandharva, his mind stupefied with infatuation, fell from his airplane after seeing your daughter playing with a ball on the roof of a palace. For she was indeed beautiful with her tinkling ankle bells and her eyes moving to and fro. He fell from his airplane. That is so cool. Purport: It is understood that not only at the present moment, but in those days also, there were skyscrapers. Herein we find the word harmya prishte. Harmya means a very big palatial building. Swavimanat means from his own airplane. It is suggested that private airplanes or helicopters were also current in those days. The Gandharva Vishvavasu, while flying in the sky, could see Devahuti playing ball on the roof of the palace. Ball playing was also current, but aristocratic girls would not play in a public place. Ball playing and other such pleasures were not meant for ordinary women and girls. Only princesses could indulge in such sports. It is described here that she was seen from the flying airplane. This indicates that the palace was very high. Otherwise, how could one see her from an airplane? The vision is so distinct that the Gandharva Vishvavasu was bewildered by her beauty, and by hearing the sound of her ankle bangles and being captivated by the sound and beauty, he fell down. Kardama Muni mentioned the incident as he had heard it. Yes, Gagaraj Rukmini was also kidnapped by the Lord. Yes. Tam prartayantim lalana lalana mam asevita shri charanar adrishtam vatsa manor ucha pada swasaram ko nanumanyeta buddho biyatam. What wise man would not welcome her, the very ornament of womanhood, the beloved daughter of Swayambhuva Manu and sister of Uttanapad? Those who have not worshipped the gracious feet of the goddess of fortune cannot even perceive her, yet she has come of her own accord to seek my hand. Kardama Muni praised the beauty and qualification of Devahuti in different ways. Devahuti was actually the ornament of all ornamented, beautiful girls. A girl becomes beautified by putting ornaments on her body, but Devahuti was more beautiful than the ornaments. She was considered the ornament of the ornamented, beautiful girls. Demigods and Gandharvas were attracted by her beauty. Kardama Muni, although a great sage, was not a denizen of the heavenly planets, but it is mentioned in the previous verse that Vishvavasu, who came from heaven, was also attracted by the beauty of Devahuti. Besides her personal beauty, she was the daughter of Emperor Swayambhuva and sister of King Uttanapad. Who could refuse the hand of such a girl? Okay, maybe we won't have time to read at 19 and 20. Yeah, it's 8 o'clock now. Okay, I'm just going to read the translation of these verses, and then we'll continue on. we'll continue from 19. I wanted to read to 20 today, but that's fine. Translation. So, therefore, I shall accept this chaste girl as my wife, on the condition that after she bears semen from my body, I shall accept the life of devotional service accepted by the most perfect human beings. That process was described by Lord Vishnu. It is free from envy. The highest authority for me is the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom this wonderful creation emanates, and in whom its sustenance and dissolution rest. He is the origin of all Prajapatis, the personalities meant to produce living entities in this world. Sri Maitreya said, O great warrior Vidura, the sage Kardama said this much only, and then became silent, thinking of his worshipful Lord Vishnu, who has a lotus on his navel. As he silently smiled, his face captured the mind of Devahuti, who began to meditate upon the great sage. So we'll be reading that all tomorrow. After having unmistakably known the decision of the queen as well as that of Devahuti, the emperor most gladly gave his daughter to the sage, whose host of virtues was equaled by hers. Okay, so we'll read all that's in the story of their marriage tomorrow. Or the history, I mean to say, not story. History. Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shishi Guru Gauranga Gandhar Vikagiri Dhari Shishi Radha Vinod Vihari Ju Ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shata Shishimad Shala Bhakti Grantha Narayan Goswami Maharaj Shila Gurudev Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shata Shishimad Shala Bhakti Grantha Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shata Shishimad Shala Bhakti Grantha Swami Maharaj Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shata Shishimad Shala Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shata Shishimad Shala Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishta Maha-Bhagavat Srila Goksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath. Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Shar Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai. Namachay Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जाय. श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल ब्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जाय. सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जाय. श्री राधा कुंज श्याम कुंज की जाय. श्री मुन देवी गंगा देवी की जाय. श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जाय. श्री भक्ति देवी की जाय. श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जाय. श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जाय. श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जाय. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. श्री सफल अकारशी तिथि की जय. अकारशी तिथि पालन करी भक्त वृंद की जय. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय. श्रीनिताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवाश्च कृष्ण भक्ति प्रदेवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः. Vansha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Dandavat pranams. Dandavat pranams Gargaraj Prabhu and Indira Mataji and Anjali and whoever else might be watching. Hari Bol.